I've got one man that's pretty old and can't swim.
And I didn't know how or when it was going to go, but I wanted to make sure I was ready.
Yeah, they need to get away from that boat.
And we're all going, oh, this ain't good. Okay, I'm Steve Barry. I was on the Kupreanof when it sank on June 10th, 2015. The story goes like this. We left Petersburg on the 6th and went to Juneau and spent a couple days loading up the boat with supplies, going to Costco, doing all that kind of stuff. We were bound for Bristol Bay to tender salmon during the gillnet openings and then come back to Prince William Sound, back into Southeast. This is the first time the boat had been across the Gulf in quite a long time, and I had only been running the boat for about 4 days. I knew the boat, but I hadn't actually climbed on and ran it. We got to Juneau, did our thing, and then about 4 in the morning on the 10th, we departed Juneau and headed out. It took most of the day to get out to what Indian Pass or the Indian Islands out there, which is still on the inside waters. And at that time, I realized that I hadn't done a safety drill. And so we pulled into a little bay there and started, dropped the anchor, tanked her down, and I did the safety drill. Had my crew try on their survival suits, showed them where the EPIRB was and showed them the life raft and explained kind of what would happen if we were going to have, had some problem. The boat was sinking. And we headed out around Cape Spencer, which is the last point before you hit the Gulf of Alaska. And right away, my crewman got seasick. He wasn't feeling well, so I told him to go ahead and go to sleep and took the wheel, and everything was doing good. It was maybe 15-foot seas and not real nice. It was uncomfortable for sure, but the boat was holding up good. Handling the weather, it was a sweet boat. Oh, I guess it was about 3 in the morning. I went down and got Palmer, the engineer, and woke him up and said, "It's your turn, take the wheel," and I had been doing engine checks the whole time. So he came up and I waited and make sure he was awake and got some coffee ready, and Palmer, I were sitting up in the wheelhouse going, wow, this boat handles really good. It's riding, this thing's a good sea boat. As we were talking, I said, well, she's got a little bit of a list. I'm going to go down and see if there isn't fuel tanks or something like that. And I went down and I couldn't, I shifted the fuel tanks, but that had nothing to do with it. It was listing to the stern and to the port side, which told me that something was happening in the lazarette. And by then we were listing a lot worse. So I went to my crew, the 2 downstairs and down below, and said, hey, you guys, get your survival suits and take them and go up in the wheelhouse. And, and I had turned on some pumps in the lazarette to pump it out. I turned on every bilge pump I knew of, but then it was getting worse. And it was definite that I couldn't do anything about whatever was happening. And that's a sick feeling, because it was out of my hands. First thing I did, there was a boat called the Gordon Jensen, which is a processor. And he was about 10 miles away, and I called him up and said, hey, I can't get rid of the water and need you to come assist us if possible. And he said, yeah, no problem, we'll be over. It'll be about an hour. And right after that, I made the call to the Coast Guard, Mayday, 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 and put out the word. and I deployed the life raft because we were kind of bobbing, you know, and I kept it in gear. I didn't want to take it out of gear because I figured if I'd slowed it down, we might have gone down quicker. And Coast Guard, you know, were going to get the helo in the air as soon as they could, but I knew from previous experience or from being around, it takes about 20 minutes just to get the helicopter ready to take off. You know, by the time they go warm it up and go through all their protocol. And then we were at least an hour, maybe two away. I didn't know, I don't know how fast they go, but so it was going to be about an hour and a half. And it was going to be at least an hour or more before the Gordon Jensen could get to us. You know, I had given Yolanda the EPIRB, told her if she goes over, don't lose that. We brought all the buoys around, the fenders, big orange buoys. We brought all those around, and I told them, okay, we all go over together, we all hold on to a buoy, and we all wrap arms together when we hit the water so that we're all together. The life raft, I deployed it and I tied it off to the rail. And the reason I tied it off the rail was the way the wind was blowing and the type of seas, we wouldn't have been able to get into that raft in time. So I had it tied on, knowing, and you know, and I had a knife in my pocket, knowing that if and when we got into it, I'd be able to cut that line and we're all safe. Palmer, who was 72, couldn't swim. So we're waiting, and I ran down into the engine room 4 different times. I'd take off my survival suit and run down thinking that maybe there was something I had missed, something going, you know, is there anything I could do? And then about the 4th time, because by then we were really had a list and we were just bobbing along. Like I said, still in gear, and you know, my crew said, hey, no more. You can't, you know, we need you up here. We don't want you, you know, you're crazy. Basically is what it got down to. Don't do that anymore. And so I agreed. About an hour later, you know, we all had plenty of time to soul search and say our prayers or whatever. Gordon Jensen got there, and I was talking to him saying, hey, how do you want to do this? You want to take us off the boat, or do you want to get us in the water? And he said, well, we don't want to get anywhere near the boat. You know, I was explaining to my crew that, okay, we're going to get it wet. We're going to get in the raft. And about that time, I heard the helicopter on the radio, so I ran in. My crewman saw it first. She said, here comes the helicopter. And I was like, okay, great. You know, now we've got people that really know what they're doing. And went back in the wheelhouse. Now, by then, you know, it was like you're holding on to the rail. Of course, the radio is, you know, I had to take my survival suit off so I could use the damn radio. And
yeah, I'm on listening on the radio. Hello, what would you like us to do there?
Coast Guard said, okay, we're definitely doing an in-the-water rescue.
And I think it'd be easier if you can get to your life raft to get into that, but otherwise we'll probably end up putting our swimmer down into the water to pick you guys up.
I've got one man that's pretty old and can't swim.
The raft is tied up and useless now.
As the helicopter came up from behind us, it pushed that raft around the bow, and it went right around the bow and back down where Palmer was standing. And Palmer was standing on a tote back there trying to figure out what he was going to do because he can't swim. Well, here comes the raft floating by, so he jumped right in it.
One guy just went over on the starboard side.
Roger. Forward right 10. Forward right 5. And hold.
He looks like he made it in.
Yolanda, the cook, she jumped in, and Palmer's a big guy. He was a big Norwegian, you know, and strong for 72. And so he was grabbing us as we came back. He could grab us like wet kittens and pull us right on board the life raft. Yolanda got picked up, and me and Marcos were working our way back along the rail. Told Marcos, go ahead and, you know, go for it, man, Marcos.
Good. Looks like flash guys in the water.
Palmer pulled me on board, and from the Coast Guard diver came. He popped up, you know, wearing his snorkel, and it was kind of like a big old sea lion coming up there. And he said, well, I know your day didn't start out too good, but it's going to get a whole lot better now. So they picked up Palmer. He went on up, and about that, something happened with the prop wash on the helicopter, and it blew us back around onto the back of the boat. And so we're getting ripped around in like a pool ball or something, bouncing around off the rails.
Yeah, they need to get away from that boat.
And we're all going, oh shit, this ain't good. This is not good. Stuff floating around, boards with nails sticking up, you know, our deck.
Okay, so there's a big wooden platform with those two life rafts on it. I don't think it'll get airborne. It's soaked with water. It's underwater, but it's in the way a little bit.
Roger, inside.
Y'all make sense having to avoid it and keep itself away from it. I'd like to conduct this hoist a little bit further away from the life raft, make y'all swim, just so we don't blow the raft into the boat again.
Roger, sounds good, sir.
All right, so are you all set?
All set.
All right.
That's when they got Yolanda up and Marcos up, and I was kind of sitting on the edge of the raft. I knew that raft was still tied on, and I didn't know how or when it was going to go, but I wanted to make sure I was ready to get off. The diver came and you know, got me and dragged me back into the lift. As I was going up, the bow of the boat was going down. Me and my whole crew were on the chopper, and so that just left the Coast Guard diver to get picked up. And once he came up and was on the boat, you know, it's like, okay, we're safe. The boat's gone. You know, you could look down, and all you saw was a bunch of stuff floating around, you know, and then shock hit. That's when, you know, the reality, and it was about an hour, better than an hour ride back to the Coast Guard, back to Sitka there, and so it was a long ride back. Landed in Sitka. Of course, they had an ambulance there to check us all out. Somehow I'd thrown my phone in the bottom of my survival suit, so everybody else lost out, you know, their wallets, their everything. You know. As we stepped off of the chopper, the guys from the medics were there, and they were doing blood, you know, checking our blood pressure and asking how we were, and everybody was okay, and they told me my blood pressure was up, and I said, well, and the guy kind of said, well, I imagine in a situation like this it would be. Kind of sat around, they gave us some dry coats and coffee and took good care of us, you know. We had to go through the grilling, I guess you might say. They had a lot of questions, and they went through the whole crew, and then of course they said, you know, had me talk a bit with them, and then they sent me over to do the drug testing and alcohol testing at the hospital, and then came back and they grilled me another, seemed like forever, but in the meantime, one of our friends from Icicle Seafoods called up and said, you know, I hope everything's going okay. He was an ex-coastie, Don, and he said, you know, well, we've got a plane that's running out someplace to do something, but after he's done, we can come pick up your crew. And I said, boy, you know, yeah, that'd be great. So I had to take a little charter plane back here, and I checked on my crew, and they were all okay here, you know. I wasn't. I was in shock. The previous owner of the Kupreanof was calling me and saying, hey, come on down to the Moose Club. We want to hear the story. You know, and I'm saying, hey, I'm not going anywhere right now. And I was getting phone calls from all over, you know. But, you know, right as I got off the plane here, the radio station, which I DJ for, called and said, hey, can we get the story? And I said, well, I'll come down and talk to you guys because I know who I'm talking to. So I walked into the radio station, and they're all back sitting around a computer watching, and they go, wow, that's pretty amazing. And I go, what's that? And they said, the video. And I go, what video? And they go, the video of them picking you guys up. And I said, what? There's a video? I said, this is crazy, on the computer already. And they go, yeah. It was, you know, the Coast Guard took it. And so I went over and sat down and watched this damn video, you know, and it was like, holy crap, yeah, that's what happened. You know, right down to the life raft bouncing around on the back deck, to me going up and the boat going down. And so then I talked with them and went back home, and that was kind of it. You know, I was probably in bad shock for a few days. I had a couple friends that were out on their boat that they ran, real close friends, family, and they were out on their boat. They came back in and checked on me. So I'd go hang out with them, you know, trying to walk down the street, and you know, people wanted to talk to me, and everybody, you know, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. So I'd go down to their boat early in the morning, and they'd give me a ride back home or something. So I didn't, because I would, you know, it hit home. And I've suffered from PTSD from quite a bit, but we're okay now. It's been, gosh, almost 10 years now. You know, I was pretty amazed in retrospect, thinking about it, because everything, the way the boat was sinking, it was going down, and I was getting, and then we just bobbed there for an hour and a half until the Coast Guard got there, and then we started sinking again. And plus that raft was on one side, and I asked the Coast Guard, I said that, I told them, I said, that was pretty good the way you blew that raft around the bow. And they said, no, we're good, but we're not that good. We didn't do it on purpose. It was just damn, you know, so everything kind of went in slow motion. That whole time, you know, it was like days. You know, waiting for the Coast Guard to get there, waiting for the Gordon Jensen to get there. You know, and then everything speeded up real fast. You know, once they told us to get in the water, it was like, holy crap, you know, and then the boat went down, the raft went down, but we were all okay, you know, and that's the ticket.
That's why we're talking right now.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story. Amazing story. Yeah, no, excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us. You did an excellent job, man. Excellent. Excellent.
You got it?